This takes me back to the early days of the internet, well before Google dominated the scene. Web pages were rudimentary, HTML reigned supreme, and CSS was a rare find. It was the era of the deep web, where the mysteries of the online world were waiting to be uncovered, not just the dark alleys of illicit activities. I was a digital wanderer, hopping from random blogs to Josity sites and anything in between, chasing links like breadcrumbs. One day, I stumbled upon an enigmatic page. It seemed like a collection of random thoughts from different individuals, but it was surprisingly well designed for its time. The messages conveyed an air of secrecy, as if several people were attempting to exchange covert messages. Intrigued, I delved into the page's source code. Hidden within the comments of a JavaScript script were a series of IP addresses. I meticulously gathered all these cryptic numbers into a text file and began my enumeration. Some of these IPs led to routers, their banner messages warning me that I'd entered secure systems at various universities. I had the keys to some of these routers, thanks to default Cisco credentials from the early days, but I resisted the urge to probe further. A handful of IPs belonged to web servers, rather unremarkable at first glance. Most ran Apache on Linux or some flavor of BSD, with a solitary IIS server among them. Then, I stumbled upon a web server housing an extensive directory of HTML files and TFF images. There were smaller subdirectories with similar contents. Curiously, there were no reverse Diaz records for this IP, and tracing it only got me as far as Colorado. The HTML files seemed to be structured like records a psychologist or a mental health professional would maintain, while the images consisted of faxes ranging from military to medical in nature. As I navigated back to the parent directory from a subdirectory, a newly created HTML file caught my eye, named something like own hello-there.heml. Its timestamp was from mere minutes ago. I opened it, and there, in plain text, was the message, "We see you." No quotes, all lowercase. About 15 seconds later, the server abruptly went offline, leaving me with more questions than answers. When I was a freshman in high school, my best friend and I were very into exploring the deep web. We had Tor and would exchange onion links that we had discovered, embarking on our digital adventures together. We encountered some bizarre and unsettling content. Right away, we stumbled upon a website claiming to offer the services of a professional hitman. We were convinced it was a front operated by the authorities to catch criminals. Our exploration led us to various chans, which were essentially deep web versions of image boards like 4chan. Some of these were extremely strange, and we couldn't help but be drawn to the forbidden and often illegal discussions taking place there. At the time, we were both fascinated and repelled by the dark corners of the internet. Among the disturbing content we encountered were violent and graphic forms of pornography, often merging with gruesome images. We quickly learned to avoid such content, as it was a severe mood dampener. One intriguing discovery was the Silk Road, an underground marketplace that intrigued us even though we never considered making any purchases. However, perhaps the most unsettling part of our deep web exploration was the personal ads. We came across bulletin boards where people openly discussed their most deviant and incomprehensible desires. It was a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature, and we couldn't help but think about the real-life implications of these online fantasies, particularly recalling stories like the infamous Craigslist killer. Our deep web adventures left us with a sense of unease, and we eventually decided to leave the murky depths of the internet behind. Looking back, it was a surreal and eye-opening experience that taught us valuable lessons about the hidden corners of the digital world. I first learned about the deep web back in grade 10 when this really strange druggy kid in my grade was going on about it. We sat together in English and had a new teacher that wasn't quite good and didn't really know how to control the class, so the last 20 minutes or so, she would just let us do whatever. Everyone around this kid's desk, let's call him Alex, would crowd around his computer and watch him monkey around on Silk Road and weird other sites he found. No illegal content, but drugs, discussions about hitmen, and strange content in general. I was kinda sketched out by it, so I tried to avoid looking at it all, but I listened, and it was pretty strange. Eventually, Alex decided to order drugs from some site. This was high school, so we all lived at home. And he figured he'd order some substances to his cottage, go up for a weekend, and pick it up to hide in his closet. So he typed in his address to some guy, worked out the details, and waited. He went up to his cottage the next weekend, and we all eagerly awaited his return for the stories. Alex got back, and we all ran up to him to ask if it worked. He said it didn't, and he was really frustrated since he had already paid the guy. He complained to whoever was selling him the drugs, and the guy was very understanding, saying he would send an even bigger package to his cottage. Alex went up the next weekend. Still, nothing arrived. The guy was very apologetic and said he'd send one more package. Yet again, nothing arrived. Alex gave up and figured it was just a guy trying to make a quick buck. He decided to quit the deep web. And that was that. Months later, he went up to his cottage with his family and hosted a big dinner party with the whole complex of cottages. He was schmoozing around and overheard some elderly people talking about going to the police. He asked why, and they told him. They had been consistently receiving shipments of drugs every week. Alex had accidentally typed in the wrong address, and the guy he was talking to had been sending more and more to the wrong people each week because he felt so bad. Alex was so sketched out that he quit everything and is now doing quite well for himself. I'm proud of him. While randomly clicking around Tor one night, I stumbled upon a peculiar website. It greeted me with a cryptic riddle and a text box where I could enter an answer. Being a curious 15-year-old, I decided to give it a shot. To my surprise, my answer was correct, and it led me to another page, which presented a new puzzle, even more intricate than the last. Each page was a challenge that grew progressively harder. Feeling both intrigued and slightly out of my depth, I ventured to find more information about this mysterious website. I discovered a forum where others had stumbled upon the same site and were discussing their experiences. It appeared that on the final page, there was merely a date and a quote from Alice in Wonderland. While some believed it was merely a complex form of online entertainment for seasoned codebreakers and programmers, there were unsettling speculations that it might be a recruitment site for hackers, similar to Cicada 3301. The uncertainty of its true purpose left me with an eerie feeling, and I couldn't help but wonder about the enigmatic individuals behind it.